Yep. Stay on board with us for the Q&A.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, sure.
Thanks. Okay. I'm going to go on to my slides. Now, what I'm going to tell you is just my personal experiences. You're not going to find it in Google. You're not going to find it in any of the search reports. But as a marketing director for so many years in Vietnam, I can tell you what makes me sit down and listen to partners, because the last 12 years I've been representing Vietnamese companies, to view and understand what the Vietnamese bosses in their minds thinking. So most of the time, to make a meeting effective, right, you have to do a lot of research of the company that you're going to go to, and then find out who could be the one that you can be a buddy with from that company, or somebody that may not be working inside the company, but might be somebody you can trust to tell you more about that company. So normally I would do a lot of research before I uh, go for a meeting with the supposed potential partner. Okay, so some of the key personnels from, let's say, the Vietnamese companies. Of course, number one, the chairman or the CEO, of course, they are the decision makers. But sometimes they rely on the marketing director, who plays a very big and heavy role in the company, to decide if this presentation is going to go upwards to the bosses. But along with the marketing director, you may want to also deal with, I would say, the business development person, could be in charge of sales as well. You may also want to know that in most big or most Vietnamese companies, like what Phuong did mention, is a lot to do with family. You can be sure that the sons or the daughters or brothers, sisters will be also in that organization. Find out. Sometimes they do not hold positions. Sometimes they do not have a title. They just sit in. And from my own observation for 12 years, I can tell you that the person who doesn't talk a lot is normally the person that makes a lot of decisions. Okay, so this is just part of the tips. Of course, after this whole session, you can make appointment with me. I can tell you the entire story from A to Z, but definitely I'll be, love to, like meet you first. And then when the entire COVID-19 situation can be better managed, please have copy with me. I'd love to meet up with you. Okay, now, I'll go on to the next slide. We are talking about like exactly what should you present. Now, the thing is that I have encountered many Singaporean companies coming to meet me and showing me what they have on file and said that I have a beautiful presentation. But I don't understand why I fail in Vietnam, So it's things like this that I said, show me your presentation. So on the spot, I do a correction for them. Okay, maybe because I'm quite well versed in marketing, so I know what sells and what don't. Okay. I can also tell you something interesting about what Vietnamese think about Singaporeans. Okay, I mean, it is something quite shocking to me. Actually, for 12 years when I was there, I didn't quite hear this feedback. But when I came back, right, then I was having a session with Vietnamese friends, and they said, you know what, not Amy, you know what is the biggest complaint Vietnamese have for Singaporeans or not? And I said, have complained, man. Of course, have complained now, but what is the key complaint, right? They say Singaporeans always think that we are very smart. Okay, I tell you, my first initial year, I landed myself in a hospital. Why? A lot of Singaporeans, when you're based there for, let's say, a bit of time, right? Let me tell you, you sure see doctors at least 2 or 3 times in a year. Why? You see, to get your message across to somebody that speaks English with you, I can tell you that it's quite easy to find, okay? But to understand exactly what you want them to do is not easy to find. Communicating in English, right? My initial years, my bosses always find for me what you call Li. Li means assistance. Very easy to find because you know why? The requirement is translator law. As what Feng said just now, you better choose somebody to represent your voice who knows a bit about your business, who knows a bit about your personal expectation, who knows a bit about your culture, your business, your organizational culture, what you want your client to listen to. Let me tell you very simply. On the first 2 years when I had meetings in big organizations and all those things, my translators, who are my assistants, would translate exactly those words from the partners. And then to me is, oh, good lah. They say very good, very happy. Next week, they're going to come back to me and go partner me. And then I'm just going to do this presentation with them. Oh, very happy. But in the end, weeks after weeks come, how come they don't get back to me? Then suddenly you realize there's a lot of things in between the lines that your own personal assistants or translators is not able to actually tell you. So therefore, do you need a translator? I said, no, you need beyond that. You need somebody that's able to actually read between the lines, left, right, up, down, and then analyze what the other Vietnamese is trying to tell you, and then fairly tell you exactly what is happening in that meeting. So it's not just about translating words. Translating words, I can tell you anytime you can get anybody. Trust me. Okay? So you don't want to die a very bad death. So you better get somebody that you can actually have a good conversation with at least 1 or 2, 3 weeks beforehand. Okay, then I say, okay, fantastic. You probably is confident enough to go for the meeting. Okay, so what do the audience in the meeting want to see, especially Vietnamese big companies? First of all, they want to see this. What's your company name, right? Of course, they need to know lah. Because you know why? Most of the time, you write in, you probably be answered by somebody who understands English and answer you. But that doesn't mean that person is your decision maker, you know. So therefore, what's your company name? And then you have to talk about like what industry, what product, what service you're selling. Don't describe in big words, okay? Use simple words. Okay. Next thing, most important, if I were to sit down and listen to you, let's say I'm a Vietnamese boss, I sit down and listen to you. Tell me what benefits do I get partnering you? So therefore, tell me, why should I partner you? Why should I buy your service? What benefits do I have? Are you going to increase my financial standing? Or are you going to increase the values of my branding? Okay, so opportunities, existing competitors, pretty much like a SWOT analysis. Understand who their major competitors first. Most of the time, unfortunately, you cannot find out from the Google, right? As I said, go and find somebody that you think can trust, who knows about the company. Sometimes can be more than one person. Okay, and then you talk about how do you actually see this partnership enhancing your partner's values, like what I say now, the market positioning. Today I'm at this level. After I partner you, do I get into this level? Today I have this market share. If I partner you, do I get into this bigger market share? Do I go globalize? Can you bring me to Singapore? Can you develop my business to Singapore or anywhere in the world? Okay. Then you talk about like, if you can, you convert those what you say on slide 2, like, you know, opportunities and also, can you actually convert them into dollar and cents? Sometimes very difficult. Sometimes so difficult to say that, okay, you're going to increase at 10%, 15% on first year, second year. I mean, those very easy to just put numbers. But I can tell you one thing, Vietnamese, right? They are all very street smart, very realistic, very practical. Okay. Numbers or no numbers is just theoretical. In the mind, it's always about real or not, can do or not, sure or not. Okay, so I'm speaking like this because I'm a typical Singaporean, even though I stayed there for 12 years. But I can tell you is I'm very proud of being Singaporean. So when I'm there, I also speak like this. So anyway, be yourself, okay? Right, so then you talk about like, the tips is actually most important, find out who is the decision maker lah, who's going to influence the decision, right? So therefore, when you give a presentation, right, don't go and look at everybody, because that's not how Vietnamese do presentation. Vietnamese do presentation, even though there are 10 people, trust me to say that at least there are at least 2 or 3 people making decisions. And most of the time, they sit together, okay? Let's say that in one side of the table, there are 7 people, okay? On the other side of the table is your potential partners. So this side of the table, I'm saying is, the people who's sitting in the middle is the one that is the most important person. And the person that's sitting on either his left or right is the second most important person. But one of them is also personal assistant. So must be what you call sing mok. That means think, view, see, analyze, try to see. Best still, before the meeting, check out who is this, who is that, know their faces. Okay, but of course, going to the meeting, if you can learn some basic Vietnamese, you can also lighten the environment a bit lah. Like for example, you can, you can say xin chào các bạn. I mean, of course, I can speak Vietnamese because I've been there for so many years, or something simple lah, yeah. So like what just now Phuong did was she used Chinese, some Chinese words and all those things. I mean, appreciate that, Phuong. I mean, that's very nice to kind of reach out to the Singapore audience. So I'm going to go a bit faster because, yeah. So anyway, then you talk about your milestones, like from when you start and then, what you want to achieve and, and then you also need to tell exactly, like, let's say you partner this person, right, this company, right, what else you want to achieve. But by being in Vietnam and you partner this person, what would you like to achieve within Vietnam? Okay, so it's kind of important to speak out also. Then you need to show who your clients are. Okay, I mean, of course, we have this testimonial thing, and then we have all these big logos, Intel, blah blah blah, ESG, everybody, okay, those important. Okay, so you just put it up, and then this is my last slide lah. You put like contact Singapore office, Vietnam office, and then your whole world office. Okay, like you have an office in US, whatever, just place it down. Okay, but then very importantly is you really want to do business successfully in Vietnam, right? You really need to employ somebody locally. Okay, because that will seal the fate whether they see you as whether you're sincere to actually work with them or not. Okay, you got to actually at least have a JV office, or you have a rep office, or you want to set up 100% foreign owned office, or whatever, but at least you have an office, and then you have a local staff. At least start with one first, or you can have 2, but whatever it is, this staff is supposed to represent you to do BD, business development, okay, able to actually be there for you and then help you to be your voice when you're back in Singapore or anywhere in the world. Okay, so you need to have this person, but whether this person can be trusted, humble, or honest, or whatever it is, you can't really tell, but it's okay. As long as this person is able to get you what you want, it's fine. The problem in Singaporean is this, including me, we are very minute most of the time. We like to go into details. Sometimes relax, okay? Just tell the person, your staff in Vietnam, what you want to do. Then after that, when the person is able to come back, trust what she says. And then if you think that there's something better that she should do, then advise her along the way. Don't scold, don't belittle that person, and don't think we're always better. Okay, don't think that we're always smarter. Okay, I'm just going to end my presentation here. I hope it's helpful. Q&A will come later. Now I'll pass the mic to my dear Norman. Norman, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Can we see who you are?
Wait a minute. Okay, can see me?
Cannot.
Hello?
Okay, no can. Hey, thanks, Norman, for coming in. I know it was a last-minute invitation from yesterday.
Right, so I will turn off my video because I'm on Wi-Fi, my company Wi-Fi. worried that the Wi-Fi is not stable.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Norman. A little bit of introduction of myself. I've been away from Singapore for since 94. And I came to Vietnam in 2007. Right now, I'm working for an American MNC. I'm the president for Asia Pacific, basing out from Vietnam because we have a manufacturing facility here. So prior to this, I was a general director for 2 Fortune 500 MNC that started, I helped to start their operations from scratch, starting from building a rep office to a trading company to opening a factory. So my experience in Vietnam and regionally is mainly greenfield to start new businesses. And I speak 9 foreign languages, including Vietnam. For myself, my wife is a Vietnamese. So just now, I really appreciate Thai Phuong mentioned Lu Xiang Sui Xi, Vào Nom Thân in Vietnamese. Am I correct? So if I do say things too direct for our Vietnamese colleagues and friends, they are darling, xin thông cảm nha, nhưng mà có gì xúc phạm là xin thông cảm. So I'm saying that if whatever I said is offensive to the Vietnamese, please forgive me. So I believe a lot have been touched by Thai Phuong talking about culture. For the places that I visit in Asia Pacific, when I go around starting new businesses, I will fall back academically. I will use the Hofstede dimensional theory. If you look at the dimension that this Hofstede lays down, there are 5 dimensions that this from power index, long-term orientation. You can do a Google search on that. You start to realize that a lot of these are very similar. Most of the Asian cultures are very similar, including Singapore, being an Asian culture base. And Amy and Thai Phuong has also touched on how you're going to start businesses here, how you're going to work with your local partners. I have to draw to your attention that though Vietnam is one country, but the culture, there is I would say a subculture within the main culture of Vietnam. The northern Vietnamese, central Vietnamese, and the southern Vietnamese, in business-wise, behave quite differently. For the North Vietnamese, they are more subtle. You need to be able to catch in between lines what is said in between words. For the Southern Vietnamese, they are more direct. It's much easier to catch and to understand what they meant when they say it. And like any other country, there are always good and bad business partners. My advice to you is you have to be very wary of who your business partners or your potential business partners are. Do remember that Vietnamese always look for the short-term or long-term benefit. There is no long-term friendship. I need to remind you that. It is always the long-term benefits that will bring to both parties that they are interested in. I've seen local partners fallen apart. I've seen foreign investors with local partners fallen apart. We have real-life stories of Singaporean came here. Let me quote an example. Chewy Jr. is a pastry franchise brought in by a Singapore lady. She started this with a so-called good friend, Vietnamese friend. And for 3 years, when she brought the franchise in, she worked day and night, holidays, 365 days. She brought from one shop to 7 franchise. At the end of the 3 years, the partner gave her back her initial investment and said goodbye to her. So like I said, there is good and bad partners that you have to be wary of. And to touch on the topic of corruption, I would choose to disagree with what Amy says that we have to live with that. My company has 200 staff. I have sacked 36 of them because of corruption. So how do I go about that? When I took over the operations here, the company I work for right now has been here since 1997. I took over the operations in 2014, 2014, and I sacked 36 people already. So one thing that I realized, if you want to stop corruption or to minimize corruption, you will have to be hands-on yourself. So I have to go through every supplier that we have, and I have to deal with the supplier myself as a first cut, spelling out very carefully that our company do not allow corruption. And I will do spot checks here and there. Once we have that understanding, we will sign a letter of undertaking between the potential supplier and our company. If the supplier is caught giving commission to any one of our staff, they will have to pay 10 times the value of the contract. That's one. Second, I told them that at any one time, I will get our staff intentionally call them to ask for permission. It can be anyone from purchasing to production to finance to maintenance. So that is the only way that I'm able to control the corruption. And from my first year of launching that, I was able to save almost 300,000 US dollars off our purchasing. Amy, I saw your message that you cannot hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but I think it's because of the Wi-Fi is a bit weak on your side, so it's a bit wonky, but it's okay. Can still hear most part of it.
Like I said, my apologies. The Wi-Fi here is not stable. So as mentioned already, for corruption, you really need to dedicate your time to eradicate it. And first, and the most important thing, you have to be hands-on. There are only two types of purchasing people here. Those that took money that you know of, and those that took money that you have yet to find out. Only two types. So most of the purchasing are being locked down by me before I pass on to our supply chain department to handle. You have to do the first part in order to remove that possibility of corruption in the company. Okay, me, because I was given last minute notice, there is no flights. I'll be happy to take on any Q&A at the end of this session.
You'll definitely be invited back again, Norman, for our future business clinic, if you don't mind.
Yeah, next time I'll be charging. SBG will be charging.
Okay, by all means.
Okay, so
thank you, Norman. Thank you.
If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take at the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Norman, for being with us. Yeah. So, okay, now we are open to Q&A. You can either, if you're a bit shy, right, you can either chat and then I'll try to read your questions, or you can actually put yourself up with your video and introduce yourself a bit, and then, just shoot your question. We are here. We'll go through this for 10 minutes. Anybody for Q&A?
Amy Thai Thu is suggesting to say something.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thai Thu, you want to put yourself online and yep.
Okay, may I say something? Can you hear me?
Yes, but we can't see you.
Okay. Okay, hello. Can you see me now?
No, we still can't see you.
Hello.
Okay, doesn't matter. We can hear you.
Okay. Hi everybody. I'm Thai Thu, and I'm from Vietnam. I'm also a business owner, and just a small company, but I do like wedding dress and bridal gown and outside the traditional Vietnamese dress. Hello, and thank you for inviting me to join this webinar. And it's very interesting. Indeed, the topic is very interesting. And both what Amy and Miss Phuong say is really, really, really true to our Vietnam culture. And Mr. Norman said also correct, like the culture between the North and the South is quite different. But in general, it's all applied.
Wait, are you from the North or South? I think you need to tell everybody.
Yeah, I'm from the North. So I represent the North. Yeah, there are differences, but I think the main similarity is still that we Vietnamese, I agree with Amy that you say that creating an understanding and connection and make people feel that you understand the Vietnamese culture and be friend with them is one of the key thing, one of the key steps that will open the door for any of the business owner to come and want to join in Vietnamese market. For example, you learn how to learn some of the basic Vietnamese word, or you a bit like more daring to try Vietnamese street food like bún đậu or bún chả. It's like the noodle, the street foods. You know why? Because I also have Singaporean friends who have been here for like more than 10 years. And I find out the main differences between those who can be here for a long time and those who give up and go back to your country is that in general in Singapore it's very, very clean now. And then people are a bit scared of like new thing and the chaotic street in Hanoi. They don't dare to cross the road, or they don't dare to try the street food. They're afraid of like having stomach ache and lao sai or whatever, right? So the main I think the characteristic, the similarity of those who dare to stay here and stay here for a very long time is like, okay, dare to eat street food, can sit on the floor like what Amy said, and then okay, try to learn some Vietnamese word, and even like dare to try the motorbike ride, you know. So it's like when you are more like open your mind a bit, less worried, and go to Vietnam first before you have any prejudice or any fear about talking to Vietnamese, afraid that they don't understand you, or get to know Vietnamese culture. Then it already like 50% of success. Why you dare to go to Vietnam, dare to understand, talk, and be friend to Vietnamese. Then I'm sure that when you open your mind, and then you will get like understand the Vietnamese culture, and then you can be friend to Vietnamese, and it's much easier when you talk and discuss your business cooperation.
Thank you, Thao. That is a very yeah, that is actually very interesting for all of us to know. But of course, the next question I think a lot of them will ask is, do a lot of Vietnamese actually speak like you? You know, good English and Singapore English.
I say. I think not so many, but there are, because you know, my generation is the generation that many of my friends also study in Singapore, and now they already come back to Vietnam and they work in Vietnam. And if you find someone, for example, you find a good interpreter, right? I also sometimes do like event and do interpretation or support my Singapore friends who come to Vietnam. So indeed, it's also very important for like people like me to understand Singapore culture, so that I can understand what you mean, what you say. But more and more, I mean, more and more of my friends, more and more of people from my generation has come back to Vietnam after studying in other countries, and many have studied in Singapore also. So it's not difficult for us to understand you, and I also don't think that it's difficult for you to come to our country and find Vietnamese with good English skill. And yeah, indeed, we are also quite exposed to foreign culture. So we don't think that we will hesitate or we have any problem or trouble like communicating with you guys.
Thank you. So what is your favorite Singapore food?
oh, I'm talking about, I'm going to share my favorite activity with Singaporean is like playing mahjong.
My goodness. Hey, this one, business clinic, cannot talk more already. Okay, thank you so much, Thao. Yeah, thanks for being on board. And if there's any others Vietnamese who would like to give your views, why not? We have a platform of Singaporeans here. Would love to hear from you. Just another one more question, and then we'll just end the session. Thank you, Thao. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So, is there anybody else may want to ask something or share something?
There's one question raised by from Kenneth Sim in the chat box.
Oh yes.
Yeah, but Andy Tan has already left. The question is for him, actually.
Yeah, speakers mentioned that Singapore companies need to be hands-on. Does this mean we have to send Singaporean to be based in Vietnam to be hands-on to develop relationship with Vietnamese businessmen? Would you recommend Singapore companies to look for franchisee or distributor, and what safeguards to avoid the problem faced by Chewy Jr.? Phuong, you want to take that on?
I will take that, Amy.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
So to answer that, yes, please do not remote control Vietnam's operation from your ivory tower in Singapore. You will fail. It's a matter of when you will fail. Don't ever think that you hire someone that is capable in Vietnam to run your operations. That means a Vietnamese to run your operations while you remote control from Singapore from afar. That is the last thing that you want to do. You need to be here and on the ground. And like I said, choose your partner well. No matter how much you trust them, please be wary that they are your partners. They are not your family members.
Very, very good point, Norman. Yeah, that's something that I also will second that, because you know why, when you just send somebody there and leave that person there, or maybe a very capable one, you see, capable representative of your company based there can go two ways. One is to help you and achieve everything. The other one is to help you achieve everything and then suddenly become nothing. So I'm saying is, as what Norman said, I totally agree. You need to be there constantly as much as you can. Okay, so I guess that's about it, right? I hope everybody enjoyed. Okay, I mean, you know, this is my first time doing a webinar. I was a bit freaked out, and I just want to thank Vishnu, who is actually my IT lady from a manager from SBF, and she's been helping me to, you know, to adjust my slides and also Miss Phuong's slides. I want to thank everybody who came and spent slightly more than an hour with me, from Miss Phuong, Embassy, Norman, SBG, Thao from Hanoi, and all of you that join me in today's session. It's not the end. I don't like things to like end just because a webinar ends. I want you to contact me. I am very approachable, okay? Come to me, I'll tell you every truth. If I cannot answer, I'll pull Norman on board. I'll pull Kenneth on board. You know, I'll pull Phuong on board, whoever it is that's able to actually assist you, okay? So thank you very much once again for joining me this time. And feel free to tell me what you might want to know on my next session, which I hope to do fortnightly. Mr. Ken Thai Thu, my boss, is also online. Oh yes, I would like to ask Mr. Kenneth to speak a bit about Global Connect before I end the session. Thanks, Kenneth.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Amy, and as well as all the speakers from Ms. Phuong from the Vietnam Embassy, Norman from the Singapore Business Group, you know, who have lived in Vietnam for many years. Really appreciate both of you, you know, in sharing your insights about the Vietnam business culture. how to develop a good relationship with the Vietnamese. I think all these are very useful, and I think as part of this webinar, we have, like what Amy mentioned, we'll be doing a few more other webinars on other topics, and we also like to seek your feedback, to understand what are the other topics that you might be interested in, and we can then, invite relevant speakers, companies with a lot of experience to share, the topics that you are very interested to know more. Before we end this session, also let me maybe share a little bit more about the Global Connect initiative. We have started the Global Connect initiative